Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel. Welcome to episode number 58 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. Today we'll be on with Sifu Andrew Kimura, Jeet Kune Do royalty. He doesn't like when I call him that, but this is the son of Jeet Kune Do legend Taki Kimura. So sit back and enjoy episode number 58 with Andy Kimura.
You hear me?
Yep.
All right. I can see myself in the corner there.
All right. Cool. And you can hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, well, sorry about that technological glitch there on Facebook. That's never fun.
No, I apologize. I don't know what was going on. I was clicking that button and so.
That's okay. This is a worthy backup. It's just that your friends don't get to join live and interact with us while we do it. But it was good to see you again, man. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Very good. And your dad? How's he?
He's doing good.
Okay. Yeah. You know, my dad turns 93 this year. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But I never. He never trained with me, not once. Huh?
Was he into the martial arts?
Oh no, gosh, no. I'm the only person in my family that was that weird. Everybody else is like a normal human being. Not, you know, I made a note here to myself that you're part of that unique group. I think it's only 3 people who can say my dad was best friends with Bruce Lee at some point in his life. There's you, Greg Lee, and Diana Inosanto. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever rebel or resist against who and what your dad is?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, it was hard as a kid, you know, because I could probably count on, well, maybe not more than 2 hands, but the times that he like forgot me at school because he just met some person from out of town that we didn't know that just wanted to know about. And he would drop everything to help people, you know, just trying to pay it forward for what Bruce did for him. And yeah, it's difficult, you know, having to share my father my whole life, you know, with all these other people, and it, you know, now I understand exactly where he was coming from and what that was all about. But yeah, it was hard at points in my life, certainly.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get I hope you don't mind if I spend some time getting the history as accurately as we can, right? And then also if I use you to clear up some misconceptions that might still be out there in the Jkd world. Which is probably something you've been dealing with for a long time.
Sure, yeah. Again, politics of it is the part of all of this, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so 1960 is the official start of and would we call it the Junfan Gung Fu Institute?
Yes, I mean, essentially when Bruce, you know, reopened the school officially, you know, that was the time when they kind of started everything over.
Right.
I mean, he was working with Jesse and James DeMille and those kind of people, Doug Palmer, I think, you know, privately. And then when Bruce restarted the school so that he could leave Ruby Chow's, that was primarily the impetus. You know, he wanted to get out on his own, and my dad and some of the other guys suggested, you know, why don't you open a school, and that way you can support yourself, and, you know, we'll all pay you dues. And
right. So, but you said start over. So what was the first version of Bruce Lee's instruction in Seattle? Outdoors, in the park, that kind of thing?
Yeah, wherever they could find a place to do it. Yeah, essentially. People's houses, or, you know.
Right. And was your dad around for that, or he came later?
I think he came kind of later. You know, I know he was after Jesse and DeMille were already working out with him and those, you know, that group of people.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. I know it was probably 59 when he met him, so somewhere in there, yeah. I don't know the exact one.
Right. And the first location then was in Chinatown.
Correct. Yes.
Right. And it stayed there until Bruce Lee's departure, and then relocated, let's say, to your dad's basement.
So they were in Chinatown first, and then they moved to the University District, and then back to Chinatown.
Oh, I see.
There were 2 Chinatown locations, then one in the University District.
Right.
And then after, I'm not 100% clear on the timeline when Bruce left, how long after they moved to the grocery store, what was.
Okay, so that's what it was. It was, as you call it, a grocery store, what we would call a supermarket.
Yes.
Okay, and downstairs in the basement.
Correct. Yeah.
What does that place still exist?
No, my family owned the property there, and we sold it, and so it was torn down and rebuilt. So it's no longer.
Okay. Is any of the equipment that was there? Because I was looking in this old book, and there's there's a picture of your dad working on a piece of equipment with Inasano. Is that stuff still around?
Yeah, most of the things that we have there are still there. So.
Okay. And how old were you when all this was going on?
Let's see. I was born in '71, so
Right, because I couldn't find a birth date for you, so I wasn't sure. When it was that you came on the scene.
But yeah, I was born in September of '71, and I always remember the classes being beneath the store. As long as I can remember.
Yeah. All right, and you guys just did the your dad's 95th birthday celebration and the instructor conference. What's the actual date of your dad's birthday, just so I can make a note of it?
It's March 12th, 1954.
Okay, all right. And I said make a note of it, and I don't have my pen here. I'll record it.
Excuse me, right. I get a little bit here. So.
Okay, all right, and so you've always retained the name the Junfan Gung Fu Institute, like over the years?
Yeah, it's always been, even when we were an unofficial club or whatever, that's the continuation of Bruce's school, essentially,
Right, yeah.
And my dad told me that when Bruce closed all of his schools, he called him and told him, Taki, you can keep it open and keep doing what you're doing. And,
yeah.
He knew my dad wasn't doing anything, commercially or big. He was just kind of keeping the club going and sending Bruce dues and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't aware of, let's call it that financial transaction, between them on Bruce Lee's behalf. At one point, was not the Institute a private club?
Yes, for many years, yeah. After Bruce passed away, my dad stopped charging because, I don't even think towards the end Bruce really needed the money, but
yeah,
sure that was sending to Bruce, still. But then I know that after he passed away, that my dad just wanted to keep doing, what he could to help people, and he didn't need the money. We had a business, and he was doing pretty well at that time, I think. So it was just a matter of keeping it private and continuing to do what he, continue on the message.
Okay. But then later on, the approach changed, right? So now you're a public entity, you'd say, or a semi-private entity?
Oh, you mean currently?
Yeah, currently, yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to go more public. I'd really like to teach full time. That's not my full time pay the bills job. And so some of this is the reason for the change in going to private to more public is just so that I could try and build up a student base and, so that I can devote the time that I feel it deserves,
Right. Yeah.
Time, it's really my passion. And so it's just making that happen,
Yeah. Over the years, have the Seattle guys stayed in touch, like the different groups and what have you?
A little bit. You mean under the umbrella of?
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's let's say the Jesse Glover people, James DeMille people, Chris Clark people, and Andy Wilson's people. I mean, there's so many of you up there.
Yeah, I do my best to keep in touch. I talk to Chris Clark regularly. He's, Chris and I are good friends, and
Okay.
I saw Andy Wilson recently at Guru's seminar. So we do talk, and I've done things with them before. Jesse was always really super private. I know my dad kept in touch with him. It was always to get a hold of him if someone came and had been trying to find Jesse. He didn't purposely. He didn't want to be. Sort of like my dad's club used to be. You had to kind of know someone, and he would actively tell people, don't tell people you're taking lessons from me. I'm not looking for more students. I don't want you out there getting in fights or anything, telling people you're my student or any of that stuff. So it was all very secretive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that Inasano was secretive, but there definitely was this idea initially of not commercializing, right?
Definitely. Well, I mean, and just to speak about Sifu Dan for a moment, who's just a wonderful human being, and as you know, of course, an incredible instructor and just a wonderful human being. And it's not easy. I understand just a little bit of what it's like to try to fill big shoes, and Dan has really been the guy to try to fill Bruce's shoes, which is I don't think for anyone an easy task. And I was witness to many conversations with my father, telling Sifu Dan, you're the guy who has to pass it on. I'm busy with business and I got other things, and that's, Dan, right? He's an incredible teacher, and my dad obviously saw that he was the person to continue to certify people and to make sure that it got passed on. And he's continued to do that all of these years, and want to give him props for just being the man that he is. It's not an easy position to be in when everybody wants to point the finger at you and tell you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What about the Oakland people? Were you guys ever in touch with them?
A little bit through the nucleus. That kind of brought all of us together.
Okay.
A lot of people through that, and then I don't mean to toot my dad's horn, but I really feel like that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him. There was a lot of people that didn't want to be in a room together, but they would agree to do it for my father, for Bruce.
Yeah.
So I find myself, I guess, in that position again, and I think it would be a really cool thing if we could bring everybody together, and I don't mean bring everybody together just for the sake of bringing everyone together, but I mean bringing the right people together under some sort of banner, so that there's some sort of less confusion out there in the world about who has legitimate.
I always compare it to the Jeet Kune Do family to the United States of America at large. So the same way that we try to bring everybody together, it's trying to bring this bloody country together. So it's as big a task, really.
Well, and it comes down to people, right? Everyone has an ego, and everyone has has an experience. We all see life through the colored lens of our experience, and
right.
Unfortunately, people can't.
But Bruce Lee was so much about Jeet Kune Do being a vehicle towards the dissolution of ego.
No, I agree, and I think a lot of people miss the point. I think a lot of our brothers and sisters practice this art, but they don't get the message.
Yeah.
And then that's common of all arts, and I think it's. Bruce talked about finding the cause of his ignorance, and my dad used to always say, if you want to learn to fight, don't go somewhere else. If you want to be certified, go see Dan. That's not what I do. I teach people to try and be better human beings, and that's what we're really about. So
yeah. Well, I mean, so if somebody said, okay, Andy Kimura, you've been around forever, you know everything there is to know Oh, right. So they say, okay, I want you um, to tell me what's the difference, or if there is a difference. So I'm devil's advocate here with you. Difference between Junfan Gung Fu, Jeet Kune Do concepts, and Junfan Jeet Kune Do. Right?
Okay. I think it's easy, really. Junfan Gung Fu is the body of knowledge that Bruce taught when he was in Seattle. It is his personal art, but his expression, as well as Jeet Kune Do. But Junfan Gung Fu has a curriculum, and it can be reproduced and mass taught.
Okay.
In that, Jeet Kune Do then becomes his personal expression. And as Guru Dan always says, for example, Bruce and my father had talked about opening schools throughout the nation. And when Bruce coined Jeet Kune Do, and when he started to realize that to head down that path, I guess, so to speak, he realized, I can't teach, I have to teach each person individually to be able to tailor, to know them and be able to impart Jeet Kune Do, because as you know, it's based in, I would say, principles from Junfan Gung Fu, but beyond that, it's, each individual's strengths or weaknesses. And, so then there's that, right? There's whether or not you can impart Jeet Kune Do on other people. Well, maybe the right person can, maybe Guru Dan can, maybe my father can, maybe I can, maybe you can, but you really got to understand where you're going. It's not just anything works kind of a thing, right? So, now if I get off on a tangent, please bring me back.
Oh, no, you feel free to go off on a tangent, because you'll be in good company.
So, let's see. Jeet Kune Do concepts, I think, was just the term that got coined from, I guess, Guru's camp, really. Just that, I think they're kind of known as the concepts guys, just because of verbiage he uses. Whether you call it what do you call it? And that's what I mean. Jeet Kune Do within the confines of Junfan Gung Fu. Center line. Economy of motion, all those things that he taught from the beginning that continue to be important. I consider them kind of like Newtonian, like laws of nature, right?
Yeah.
There's difference between 2 points is a straight line. All those kind of things that he found true, that are true in combat. Within those confines, within the 3 fronts and the 4 ranges and the 5 ways of attack and the 7 stars, all the striking surfaces, he pretty much encompassed all of the possibilities of combat, and then basically, tailored to you as an individual, whether you're tall or short or strong or fast, or you're a wrestler or a kicker, the idea is to make the other guy follow you and you to fight your fight, and not let him use his strengths, essentially, right? To me, that's Jeet Kune Do in a nutshell, sort of, I guess.
Right.
Physical. So the concepts part, I think, just got coined from, I will occasionally call them Jeet Kune Do concepts, or I will refer to Jeet Kune Do principles or something like that. So I think that's just not really a separate, art or anything. It's constructing. It's just a term, right? That put there. But and then Junfan Jeet Kune Do was the term that we started to use during the nucleus to kind of encompass that whole body of knowledge.
Okay.
For a while I called it that, but I think that maybe that's the correct thing to do, really, to call that entire body of knowledge that. I have just always shied away from using Jeet Kune Do. I've never said that I taught Jeet Kune Do. Right. I may know, but I don't have a certification in it. And so whether or not I teach it inside my walls or whatever, it's not something I use that to advertise. So
yeah. What do you make of the saying, the Bruce Lee saying, Jeet Kune Do, it's just a name, don't fuss over it?
Oh, I totally agree. I think that, just the conversation we just had, he would possibly say you're kind of missing the point, It's like, I think of like Krishnamurti, right? I used to always say that if you get an awesome message through the telephone, you don't worship the telephone, you hang it up and go about your business and live your life,
Yeah.
And I think that of all the people, you know, John Little once said of all the people he'd met through the Bruce Lee world, that my dad really seemed to be the person to embody a lot of those things. And I agree, you know, he really, you know, Guru Dan is the same way. All of these people, you know, exhibit mastery through their action, you know, just the way that they behave. And,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know,
I think that even after all these years with them, there's still so much depth to your dad, to Inosano, that even those of us who've been with them forever, that we still haven't tapped into everything that they are.
No, and I, you know, were the things my dad would harp on me for years, and I really didn't quite understand what he said. I thought I did, but then as I grew and learned more and had more experience, you know, a lot of those things really clicked. You know, that you know, you're not really ready to hear some things until you're, I guess, I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, yeah. That instructors conference, was that the first annual conference?
Yeah, I think we're planning on doing it again.
Okay, good deal. Yeah.
Thank you to Marie, who was just a whiz, and what an incredible help he was with that. You know, he was you know, I kind of had an idea, and then it just grew and grew, and I have to give him credit for making everything happen.
I'm glad to hear that it's an annual thing, because then I'll definitely have an opportunity to make it out there.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. So when did you start training? So you're born in 71. Bruce Lee passed away in 73. Everybody likes to start their kids when they're like 7 or 8 years old. When did you start?
I mean, I remember being around it my whole life, and, you know, playing with my dad and that kind of stuff. But, you know, you don't really seriously start that until you're a little bit older. I was in a fight, it must have been 6th grade, however old I was then. And I remember how the bully of the school was a couple years older than me. And I ended up like round kicking him off his feet, you know, I mean, I was getting my butt handed to me, really. I mean, this kid was 2 years older and knew how to fight. You know, I'd never really been in a real fight. And,
right.
But I just remember looking back on that and my friend going, "Man, that was incredible. Like, how did you do that?" And I thought, man, I don't know how I did that. Being around, you know, and so it was things like that through my childhood and adolescence that as I continued to kind of, I won't say that I was super dedicated until I was probably 15 or 14 or something like that. But
yeah,
again, you get into little things and realize, wow, how did I get out of that so easy? What was, if I could do that just messing around, you know, what could I do if I really, you know, put some time into this? And also, you know, at a certain point I realized, it dawned on me who my father was and the opportunity that I had, and that I would be a fool if I.
What was that like? Can you remember something distinctive about, you go, oh my gosh, my dad is Taki Kimura?
Yeah, you grow up your whole life with people pulling you aside as a child and telling you, you know, how great your dad is and how lucky you are to have him as a father. And, you know, especially because my father's filled that role for so many young men. You know, that father role. I don't want to say that all the guys that come to us, you know, come for that reason, but I think a lot of people gravitated and really the things that my father had to offer resonated with them, maybe because they didn't have great relationships with their fathers or.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Those things. And so, I mean, he really has, you know, I think I can safely say that everyone that's been a student of his has led a better life because of, you know, his influence on them. And I'm sorry, I totally forgot the question that you know.
Yeah. we're like two peas in a pod. We don't worry about it. It'll come back to me too. All right. I am just, but you know, I'm just so fascinated. So for example, is it the Wing Luke Museum? Is that a fixed structure? Is that a fixture? That's a fixed structure?
Correct. Yeah, it's the Asian American Heritage Museum, I think.
Okay.
It's one of ours, you know. Yeah, but it is a fixed structure, and they were only going to run that Bruce Lee exhibit for 3 years, but it's continued, and yeah. I really are going to just keep continuing it because, You know, when we had that seminar here, they do a film before with Shannon speaking. And by the way, has really, I think, filled her role very well. I mean, I think she speaks very well on behalf of her father, and you know, I've listened to her podcasts, and I think she's doing a great job. But you know, I really feel like the museum is filling the role that my father did on a small microcosmic kind of a level, in the sense that he would meet people and tell them all these things about Bruce and take them to the grave, and they were able to get a piece of him. Well, now all of these people on a mass level can come there, and this film they show before with Shannon really says all of the kind of things that my dad used to tell them, the history about when Bruce came here and happened in Seattle. And
Yeah.
so it's great. It's really a great place, and they have a lot of other good Asian American art and things like that. So it's a museum all around.
Do you guys have your own like personal Jkd museum, like your private museum?
Not really. Much to my wife's, you know, all of the Jeet Kune Do stuff and busts of Bruce and pictures, and I mean, I'd like to eventually have a place where I could, you know, have a little. And that's kind of the reasoning behind wanting to have a school here in Seattle in the storefront. It's just somewhere that I could visit and see some of those things that I could display and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now, how old were you when you became aware of who Bruce Lee was?
Oh, as long as I could watch a Betamax and a VHS and see pictures around. And again, you know, class was twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, and so and it was pretty much, you know, below our store, and we lived above the store at that time, so it was just walking my dad down there, and you know, it was just me and my father really. So you know, I would go with him pretty much everywhere we went, and you know, so it was class. And I'm sure I was just a nuisance, you know. I mean, and most of the guys that knew me when I was down there were like, oh yeah, I remember you when you were, you know, this high and running around, you know, these kind of things. But so I like to think I got a lot from immersion, you know, just being around it.
Yeah.
And it was always fun, right? It was always playing games with my dad. We'd put the gloves on and box, you know, even when I can remember being like, the glove felt like it was half of my body, you know. But yeah, I mean, those are just the kind of things that you know, we did. You know, I never remember kicking the soccer ball or playing football with my dad or anything, but I remember, you know, playing martial arts, I guess, is
right. And was that so would you say that you immediately had an understanding of your dad's role in Bruce Lee's life, that it all occurred at the same time, or was that separate?
I mean, I always knew. I mean, again, I just being around him, and you know, he talked about Bruce as his friend.
Yeah.
I mean, occasionally I would hear him refer to Bruce in that context, and I'm sure he called Bruce Sifu Bruce and all of that. And of course, I mean, by just calling him Bruce in this either, but it's just how I've always heard him referred to, you know.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, because the same thing happens when I hear Chris Kent refer to Sifu and Asano as Dan.
Right.
You know, like him and Cass Magda, and I have to remember that that's their era.
Yeah.
You know,
it's hard for me too, you know, because I grew up hearing Dan, or you know, and
right. Yeah. Do you think what do you think? You think we should go back to that kind of era of informality? Should we go way formal? Should we try to meet in the middle? I mean, what should we be doing, you think?
I think a happy medium. You know, my father always said that it's very informal. You know, our club's very informal, but within that, there's a pecking order, and there has to be order, right? In that sense, there has to be a clear, defined leader, and you know, who. It's like a Wing Chun class, right? Like I visited Ip Chun's class in Hong Kong, and you know, it's just a room full of people working out, standing room only, like, you know, doing Chi here, and some people are working on Sealam Tao or whatever. And the only way that you can tell the seniors is not by, I mean, no one's wearing belts or Kung Fu jackets or anything, you know. It's you can just tell by the level of instruction that one person knows more than the other. or at least in this case they do, and so they're teaching.
Yeah. What were you doing at Ip Chun's place? Was that a research trip or something in Hong Kong?
I was blessed to be able to go with John Little when he filmed a documentary about all the places that Bruce filmed his movies. And so I was able to be, I was a B camera, so I got to do a lot of filming and stuff, but we got to go to every location that he filmed his movies in. And how could I couldn't turn that down,
I think not.
I need another guy to run the camera, and you'd probably be perfect, and I'm sure you'd love to come, and it's a paying gig kind of a thing. And so it was, I mean, it was a once in a lifetime. I would have done anything to go. So,
what's become of John Little? I recently spoke with Bay Logan. You know Bay Logan?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I always, what's become of John Little? Are you still in touch with him?
I mean, occasionally, yeah, we say hello and stuff like that. He sent us some footage that he'd taken of my father years ago. He didn't plan on doing anything with it, I don't think. I just think that he took it and just realized he had it recently and sent it to us. So we played that last year at his 94th birthday. It was some really great footage down below in our grocery store when it was still there.
Wow.
Of just my father talking about Bruce and showing some techniques and different things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned technique. When it comes to tech, so what's been the evolution of Jun Fan Gung Fu over the years in terms of like has there been an evolution in structure, in approach, in a technical approach, or what have you, or is it all literally identical to what Bruce Lee did?
Well, I can't speak to that because I wasn't there when but I keep it as close as I remember it being when I grew up, at the club.
Okay.
I mean, I do teach, some things of Wally J. Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. And, but those are, again, he would come and visit us in the club when he was still alive, and would do a little mini seminars for us. Very wonderful man. Another person I have to give much respect to,
Yeah.
No, I mean, I try to keep it directly from the notes that my father gave me from Bruce, and stick to that curriculum so that, again, and that's the hard part is if I had classes I could separate out, I would do the Jun Fan classes separate from the Jeet Kune Do would be more of the graduate class, right? Once you get those tenets and weight on the back foot and all these kind of things, which later you discard a lot of this, right? Like Bruce did, right? He discarded, like he used to tell my dad, you don't need to be in great shape. It's a street. Sorry, somebody keeps texting me. A street fight doesn't need to be, a 3-round affair. It's got to be quick. It's got to be over. So you don't need to be in great shape, And then he had his fight in Oakland, and realized at the end of that, he told my dad, I chased him around for 3 minutes or whatever. And I was so tired when I finally caught him. I pummeled him a few times and told him, tried to make him say uncle or whatever. And then he tried to sweep my feet, and he told my dad, I don't know how I avoided it, but somehow I did. And, hit him a few more times, and he cried uncle basically, and it was over. But he said, I'm going to start running and doing a lot of things like that because, obviously fitness is a technique in itself, right? Like strength can. And then again, like when he met Kareem, he told my dad all those years, like Chi Sao is the nucleus of everything we do. It's not fighting, but it's a prelude to fighting. It's sort of like it's like sparring can do, light sparring can get you to that heavier level kind of a thing. But when he met Kareem, he said, I'm looking at this guy in his belly button and I can't, I extend my leg, he can still hit me with his hand. So all of these things he thought were truths, he found out weren't. And that's when movement became really important, and I can see that emphasizing in his notes to my father about the things that he needs to work on,
So they kept in touch after Bruce Lee left Seattle, because I've seen like your dad features prominently in Letters of the Dragon, right? But they were constantly, I mean, there are even letters, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw it, where Bruce Lee tries to teach your dad writing a letter to him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's always telling him, this is what I'm working on, or this is the, when I see you next, we're gonna, I'll catch you up on everything. And
Yeah.
so when he come to because Melinda's mother was here,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were coming for that occasionally also, and different reasons he would come up here to Seattle. So, but I'm sorry, what was your question again?
So no, it was about Bruce Lee teaching your dad through letters, through correspondence.
Yeah, so definitely some of that. As Shannon recently read these note cards off that my dad had that Bruce had sent him about running the school, and it was no practical advice whatsoever. And they were joking about that on the podcast because some of these cards, like, they're hard to read. It's very philosophical, flowery, totally philosophical advice about running a school. No practical, like the lights in the back, and this is when the rent gets paid. And they were joking about that because my dad did all that stuff, like,
right.
And I have all of the years of stubs. I threw most of them away, but and again, my dad said I threw and burnt a ton of letters from Bruce because he goes, I thought he was going to be around forever. I didn't think, why am I saving all this stuff?
Yeah.
But obviously he kept, the things that he thought were important. But yeah, I mean, he wrote him everything from trying to instruct him in letters to, the many reminder letters. We had a half a dozen or more letters of him, like reminding him, where are the Gung Fu jackets that I'm having you supposed to be making, and when are they going to be ready? And the pants are ready, but the jackets aren't ready. It's just a lot of stuff that normally we would do through text or whatever. Kinder, gentler time, Dwight.
Yeah. Again, to me, it's just fascinating to be able to wake up every day and have and know that you are part of this martial art greatness. This martial art legend. How do you deal with? Because whether you like it or not, you have an awesome responsibility.
I know.
Yeah. So
I feel it.
Yeah. I mean, so how do you deal with that?
Just the best I can, man. I just I thank God that I have my father as a teacher and as a best friend, and he's the greatest father a guy could ever ask for.
Yeah. Because it's gonna fall on you one of these days, and people are gonna be like, if we don't have a record of such and such, it's Andy's fault.
Right. Yeah. And so that's part. Believe me, this is part of the. My dad ran things so informally, and I don't. It worries me. Things happen in every. He always told me when I pass away, people are going to leave the club. There's going to be things are going to happen. It's not going to be pretty, but it's going to happen. Just like when Bruce passed away or left for California, people left the club and said, "Hey, I wasn't here to work out with Utaki. I was here to work out with Bruce." So
right.
Yeah. He and prepared me for that, as he did many things. I look back and think, I realized that he wasn't just preparing me, for this specific situation, but he prepared me well to deal with things in life. And he never put a lot of pressure on me to do any of this. I've done all of this on my own. I think that's part of the reason that I did embrace it, is because he never really pushed me to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to leave this in better. I see myself as a steward of my father's legacy and Bruce's art to the extent that I can pass it on.
Awesome.
And do good in this world. And that's really my aim, is just to help people. At the end of the day, if somebody's a stronger person and they can assert themselves, not in an aggressive way, but in a more positive way, at work or in their life, or stand up for themselves in social situations, that's what we're here for, and live a better life.
Yeah.
Be more self.
To me, it's amazing that no matter which direction we come at it from, ultimately, the martial art thing is just about helping people to improve who they are. That's it. That's all it is.
I agree.
Yeah. Who have you? Because I think Burt Richardson told me a story about your dad had reached out to him for something about footwork, and I think it might have been the Kali footwork. But I was wondering, over the years, who have you guys reached out to? Obviously in Asano, but is there anybody else that you guys got in touch with in order to expand upon what you were doing or inform yourselves differently?
Not really. I mean, not that my father didn't. I just don't really know that he had time. He was pretty busy. And then I, fortunately, we've been exposed to a lot of things through the academy,
Right.
And my father was always careful to tell me that, when you do other things like that, you're looking for, essentially what he was saying was you're looking for the training attributes or other things, But he would never really like tell me like, don't do that, that's not good. He would tell me the story about Bruce and how Bruce could look at something and in a moment could say, well, that's good what they're doing, this and that, but the rest is BS,
Yeah. I've heard. Yeah.
Instantly, like this and that they're doing, but the rest is, nah,
Right.
So.
Yeah. That reminds me of a Richard Bustillo attitude.
I miss him. He's a good man.
Yeah. Yeah. When the nucleus started, and those guys all came up to Seattle, and were there any of them that you had never interacted with before, that you didn't know any of them?
Yeah, most of I knew Guru, I knew Dan from just my childhood, but most of the other guys I'd never met. I'd heard of some of them,
Oh.
I think I met Richard maybe once or twice before, but Dan and Richard were really the rest of the guys. No, I had not met them.
You didn't? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think I met Herb once or something like that.
Right.
But if I did, I was really young and I don't remember the rest of them.
So
it was an opportunity for me to meet a lot of these guys. Was really
yeah. Was there ever a sit down and exchange stories session?
Oh yeah, anytime you get all those guys together, everybody's telling stories, about Bruce.
Right. Yeah.
Not not a lot that I hadn't heard before, but
okay. Because I'm dying to ask you this, even though I know it's a stupid question, but I'm dying to ask you, what's your favorite Bruce Lee story? I know it's stupid because there's so many things you've heard over so many years. You can't pick one, but there's this part of it. It's like, find out what his favorite Bruce Lee story is.
Well, I'll tell one that you probably haven't heard. So, and this is one of my favorite stories just because my dad liked to tell it, I think. So as you know, Bruce had a bit of a temper.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was in Seattle, my dad and Bruce were driving around one day. And I don't know if Bruce was eating an apple or they both were, because my dad had the grocery store. And so wherever they went, he probably, grabbed a couple apples for them to eat on the way or whatever. And so they're driving around, and my dad said Bruce wasn't speeding or doing anything. He was he was a good driver, driving very carefully. And this motorcycle cop pulled them over and just began to harass the hell out of them, and was just haranguing them with, you guys are, here you are driving around eating an apple, you're laughing, having a good time, and you think it's a big joke, and but he was just hassling them, because they're Asians. Is
right.
My opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Caucasian, this is back in the 60s. And my dad said, I looked over and Bruce's fist was just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And he said, the cop went back to write the ticket or whatever. And my dad put his hand on Bruce's and said, please don't do anything. We'll both end up in jail. Like, God, just let it go,
Yeah.
And so he did. And the cop put them a ticket or whatever, harassed them and let them go. And then a few weeks later, there was an article in the newspaper about that police officer pulling over some Italian-American construction worker, and this guy beat the hell out of the cop. Wow. So it was karma, It's just like karma story.
Yeah.
Look for that, you're gonna find it. But I remember thinking, my dad was like, "Oh, the guy beat him up pretty bad," and I remember thinking, "Wow, it would have been nothing compared to what." But you know, there's a few stories like that. He was young when he was here. You know, there were times. There was another story where he said we'd come out of those samurai movies. You know, Bruce would walk like the samurai. You know, that he saw in the movie, and he was just. But he said, I remember this one time, and we were walking home from the movie, and we saw there's some guys on the corner there, and Bruce pointed them out and said, "Hey, Taki, those guys are looking at us. Let's go kick their butts," or you know, they're looking at us, something like that, you know. But so he was pretty quick to not take any offense. If he thought someone was messing with him, he didn't put up with it, you know.
Yeah.
There's my father. I'm just Japanese American, and you know, everything he'd been through, he was very shy to do any of that. So I think in that way, he was, you know, he was sort of the father figure for Bruce a little bit, you know, here. But those are two of my favorite stories. I heard a story from John Little a long time ago about Bruce kicking a door off in Vegas. I think it was a Vic Damone thing or something like that. Or
Yeah, I've heard something about that. What was the age difference again between your dad and Bruce Lee?
So I think when Bruce came, he was about 18. You know, my dad always tells the story when I met him, he was 18, and I was about in my late 30s. So I think he was about 37, 38.
Wow.
He was about 20 older, you know.
Wow.
So there was quite a difference. And you know, that's when my dad said I couldn't be around him too much. He was just perpetual motion. He said he was always like punching and kicking, and you know, and you know, let's go get, you know what I mean. He was down to go get in the shop or whatever, you know. But my dad was like, that was too much for me. I could only put up with so much of that, and then I had to go home.
Yeah.
So I think it was, you know, Bruce was so good for my father, and I like to think that my father did a lot for Bruce as well. So it was a really
for sure.
beautiful, symbiotic relationship they had, you know.
Yeah. All right. So since I got silly with the favorite stuff, right? Let me keep going. You have a favorite Bruce Lee movie?
Oh boy, Enter the Dragon. Yeah, you know, I love them all. Way of the Dragon, probably.
Yeah.
That fight between him and Chuck Norris, and just you know, it's hard to choose, man. It really is.
What about your dad was supposed to be in Game of Death?
Yeah, he was. You know, he initially when Kareem and Dan did their parts, he was supposed to be there, but as he told me, I was very busy at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I remember looking back and telling him, how busy could you have been at the you missed that. But he was supposed to go, had a ticket, and actually Bruce passed away like a week or two before he was supposed to go back and do it.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, he was supposed to be like the praying mantis guy on like the second level or something. I would have loved to have seen that on film. Just the two of them would have been wonderful.
Yeah. Oh my God. Have you investigated like nowadays there's somewhat of a trend in going backwards to the Wing Chun and what have you. Have you spent any time investigating that kind of stuff, like the Wing Chun or the fencing or the boxing or any of that?
So we've always done a little bit of fencing. We've always had foils and you know, helmets and stuff around ever since I can remember. So that's been part of, you know, and I do read a lot about fencing footwork. Some of our students in the past and currently are fencers, have been fencers, and
okay,
you know, and that's a component, as well as boxing, you know, is also one of those things that we, you know, I have researched and worked out with other people in. What was your question again? I'm so sorry.
No. It was about going backwards towards the Wing Chun. But then I was gonna ask you about going forward to like the Kali and the Muay Thai and all the things that you hear associated with Jeet Kune Do.
Okay.
What, you know, so have you looked at any of that stuff? Delved into any of that?
So Wing Chun, yeah, you know, again, I've read a lot of books and I've studied a little bit. You know, I've been able to fortunate enough to be able to see Sifu Francis Fong and some of his seminars, and worked out with him, I think, at least once at a Legends thing years ago. But, you know, for me, it was mainly just going back to try and understand the terminology. We didn't always use the terminology. We used terminology, Pak Sao, Lap Sao, all those things, but then there were a lot of other hands, Gam Sao, and other things that we just, you know, that my dad would show us, but he just wouldn't wouldn't necessarily remember or tell us the terminology for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've gone back just in the sense of doing that, but I'm always hesitant too, because, you know, one of the things Bruce said was that, you know, of some of his students back in the day of taking other arts or continuing to study other arts was that, you know, I've liberated you from all of this. Why are you going back? And so I understand for some people that's, you know, that's their path, right? But for me, I don't want to take steps back in that sense, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
get it. Yeah.
If I put more of that stuff in, then it's going to become more, you know, that I'll be adding things back rather than taking away as I should be, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I wonder if people go into this remembering the whole daily decrease aspect versus daily increase.
Right.
You know? Are there any? Do you have any Jeet Kune Do pet peeves?
Oh, probably a lot. None that I probably should be. You know, it's hard because, you know, Jeet Kune Do is taught as a separate thing alongside other arts, and you know, it's difficult because I think like you say, you should be daily decreasing and hacking away at the unessentials rather than,
Yeah.
you know, you know, I've been in some fights, and for me, it's the more stuff that I've known, the more confusing it is, because, you know, my brain has to choose between a reaction for a straight punch or whatever, and the more arts I know, more things I know,
Yeah.
to me, clouds my immediate muscle memory reaction to do one certain thing, you know, based on a certain stimulus, right? So, yeah. And again, that's what it is for me, is self-defense. Not really. I'm not trying to learn more arts so that I can, you know, have more stuff to teach people commercially. That's not my,
Right.
not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, you know what I mean? That's not my.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, because, you know, I'm on the internet every week talking about this stuff. So I try to be careful to never come across as criticizing what, you know, what other people, because we're all in the same family, right? You know, but the truth is, people are going to have different approaches to what they're doing. And then when it comes to, and I'm telling you this because if you're going to open up the school, then you're going to have to deal with competition, and you're going to have to deal with, you know, distinguishing yourself and having your unique sales position and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So, you know, and there is a thing out there about having more to offer than other people.
Well, then that's the Western way, right? People want more and more, and want to be kept busy, and, you know, it's the flashy stuff is always, you know, really interesting at first, but and I guess it depends on what your aim is. You know, again, my aim is always, has it's been to us, is that it's for self-defense, you know, and so anything beyond, really, you know, I'm very careful about what I teach people. I don't teach people stuff that I don't pretty much know. I haven't been able to do firsthand and make work in real situations, because I don't want someone I'm teaching to go out and go, oh my God, I got hurt because something you tried to teach me didn't work. Or, you know, I think we have a real serious responsibility about what we're passing on to people, especially in that vein, right? But again, we get back to Dwight, you know, Jeet Kune Do, it's just a name, and here we are fussing over it. And ultimately, it's about expressing oneself honestly, and each one of us has to do that and has to decide what that is. Now, if you're out there teaching Junpan Gung Fu or Jeet Kune Do, then it has to be a certain thing, in my opinion, within the context or confines of, you know, some of the things we talked about earlier. But it doesn't just mean that, you know, I'm teaching, you know, various arts that I learned from maybe someone who studied with Bruce and calling it Jeet Kune Do. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean you're teaching it, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, there are all these,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, there are all these debates that go on out there about, you know, is Jeet Kune Do really MMA, right? Is, you know, does trapping work? There's all this stuff that people are talking about. And sometimes I wonder, so I'll ask you this. What mistakes were made in trying to put forth the truth of Jeet Kune Do?
Oh boy, I don't know if I, feel comfortable speaking to that one. Being again, and I'm sure there's always someone who's going to say mistakes were made or whatever, but
I'll tell you one that I think.
Okay.
Right? It was the idea of not commercializing. Now, I personally do not use the term commercialize because it has such a negative connotation to it.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it sound as if you're selling out just for money. So I use the term professionalize.
Okay.
You see, and the reason why I use that, Andy, is because I consider Bruce Lee to have been a martial art professional who knew the value of what it was that he had to offer. And my evidence for that is the high quality personalized stationery. You don't do that unless you are intending to leave an impression on people.
Mm-hmm.
The business card, you do not print a business card with your fees unless you intend to present yourself as a martial art professional. So to me, that's the permission right there, indirectly from Bruce Lee himself, for all of us to go out there and be professional with Jeet Kune Do. Just do it with the highest levels of integrity.
Yeah, I think again, I think if you're going to do it, you need to give it the attention that it deserves, and that as long as you have, the right lineage and you have the proper accredited instruction, and you're in a place to pass that on, I think that's important that we do. And I think it's really important that the right people do that and are a beacon of light for confusion out there. That's part of what I'm doing this for, is that at least, someone outside who sees, Sifu Burton or Sifu Chris can't, do something with us, then they can say, okay, well, these guys are someone that are in that vein, or they're legitimate. Not that they need any legitimacy from me. I'm just saying example from our thing, right?
Yeah.
That people that are involved with Dwight, for example, are, doing the right thing. And if I go to one of his friends' classes or anyone he endorses, I'm going to see generally the same thing, get basically the same level of instruction in Jeet Kune Do. I'm not going to leave scratching my head going, what the hell are those guys doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think Jeet Kune Do is. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the important thing. We can't, even the nucleus, I don't even think that they wanted to police people, but we were trying to come to some consensus of what Jun Fan or Jeet Kune Do was as far as a curriculum, so that we could identify who is actually doing it and give them sort of a good housekeeping seal of approval, right?
Yeah.
So the public knew who was a legitimate person and who wasn't. And then came the debate, well, whether or not you have like murky legitimacy, or your family tree is not really as strong as some of the other people's, then if you're still teaching the right stuff, does that make you legitimate? And so first of all, no one could agree on what Jeet Kune Do was supposed to be, and that's what happens when you got a group of different people and everyone's got a different part of the elephant,
right?
Yeah. One person saying, no, Jeet Kune Do is like a bat, it's just got big long flappy things, and the other person says, no, it's like a tree, it's but it's everyone's perception is true. But honestly, no offense to anyone, the only people that should have had anything to say about that should have been my father and Dan.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have been hard for me to put together a curriculum based on the curriculum Bruce left for Dan and left for my dad.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
It is a tricky thing, but you just made me think of something, because sometimes, and I should know better, but sometimes I'll read comments on my stuff and I'll reply to something, right? But when you were saying that, when you talked about murky legitimacy, I thought, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. Before I reply to something, I'm going to ask a question. What's your lineage? And then, right, whoever it is, if they can't give me a legitimate lineage, then I'm not going to say anything. So thank you for that. I think that's what I'm going to do.
I'm here to help.
Okay, one last devil's advocate thing. Like, and you made me think of it. If somebody did force you, they go, okay, you've got to create the curriculum. Where would you start? What would you start with?
Oh boy, I mean, the Jun Fan part of it, right? You know, I would definitely start with the foundational. I mean, it's like when we teach footwork, right? We teach from the dingbo, which is the majority of the weight on your rear foot.
Mm-hmm.
And initially the way Bruce taught people to move was not your nearest foot, moves that way. It's, you would always step across to cover your center line, so your groin wasn't open, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course that's a really constraneous way to move. And then once you start to move 50-50 and you move freedom of movement, the closest foot moves that direction first. Right. You are open for a second, with your groin or your center line, but you keep that within you, right? Knowing that even though you're gaining mobility, you're losing that protection, right? And you at least know that. And if you're aware of that and you have that foundational element, then it's okay to then discard that, like Bruce did so many things. Mm-hmm. And that thing about Jeet Kune Do in the world is that people want to just start where Bruce was, when they ignore this whole journey he took up the mountain to get there, right? And all these foundations, he said, geez, how's important anymore? And the old way isn't important anymore, but he had that within him, so to be able to have that massive clay and then carve it away, you have to start from that same place. So that's where I would start, really, is from that modified Wing Chun, and always the first things first, your body positioning, stance, balance, all those kind of important things. I've tried to, there really wasn't ever a curriculum written by my father. We had notes from Bruce, but it's never really been written down. It's always been an oral tradition. And so, tried to write it down, but it's not an easy task. I get off on tangents, as you know, but it's hard to know, what should come first, what's more important. And that's been really difficult for me. So I get that it's not easy when the task is laid upon you,
Yeah. But you know what, to be honest with you, what you just said about the oral tradition, in my heart of hearts, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. I think that the students I can teach my students a whole lot of things. And then they'll go, well, how did you learn that? And I go, I heard Inosano say it. And that's how it became a thing for me. He said it, I wrote it down. He didn't give it to me, a terminology paper or what have you. And I tell him it's because I'm old school Shaolin Kung Fu. If there had been a Shaolin temple in Barbados, I would have gone and I would have knelt out front until the abbot let me in. That would have been my thing. Okay, so this is the real last. This is the real last question. When you were talking about the difference in footwork, did you ever hear it expressed that Bruce Lee could do a lot of risky stuff because of his attribute level?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sure, he could probably violate all of those rules, and then in retrospect come up for the reason why it was necessary or appropriate at the time, or, it's just, again, it's a guide. I know he didn't intend to pass away when he did. And, none of us can say for sure what he would have changed or done or embraced in the future. I mean, I don't think he would have deviated too much from, what we saw, but at the same time, he was still pretty young,
Yeah. So are you saying that if somebody on the internet asked you, Andy Kimura, the question, how do you think Jeet Kune Do would have evolved if Bruce Lee had lived, that you wouldn't answer it?
Well, it would just be my supposition, right? I have what I would like to have seen, or what my family I would dream would happen, but
okay, I'll give you an easier one, right? I'll give you an easier one, right? How do you think Bruce Lee would have done in MMA?
Oh boy.
I swear to you, these are the questions, Andy, that are floating around the internet every day.
How would he have done in MMA? Good Lord. I mean, it's all good and fine to say that. There were so many people out there after Bruce was gone that wanted to say Bruce wasn't a fighter and all this and that. But, a lot of people were around when he was around. So as far as I'm concerned, that would have been the time to pose that question to the man himself, But it's always easy to look back and say that kind of stuff. And honestly, I think it's a stupid question. But at the same time, for today's people, and just for the average person, I guess it's a legitimate question. It's not an educated question, but obviously,
right. Yeah. Do you have frustrations with the people who come to you with these kind of ridiculous ideas, this uneducated, uninformed approach, or are most of the people who come to you, they know where they're going, they know who they're coming to?
Yeah, I would say so. Most of them. I mean, some of them are pretty new to martial arts, and I prefer it that way. Really, I'd rather have somebody to unlearn all of that kind of stuff. I'm good either way, really, honestly. But for years, my dad always, would tell people, if you've done other stuff, that you're really gonna have to unlearn everything. You're gonna have to empty your cup, and he didn't want anybody going to other schools while they were. And I'm okay with that, as long as my people let me know, and because I just want to be able to do the right kind of respect thing for other teachers if our students are going, following all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with everyone following their own path. I'm doing my own thing. That's cool. As long as it's not incongruent with what we are about, then we're okay with it, and all of it's about communication and in general. But there's a couple of things really quick before I forget. I want to talk about you being from Barbados, because I went there when I was a young man with my father. I visited
Barbados. Did? What year?
Yeah. Oh boy, I don't remember. Had to be late 70s, early 80s.
Okay. Wow.
For a vacation, with I just remember going with my dad there and doing some.
How in heaven's name did you guys end up in Barbados, of all places?
I think a school friend of mine's parents went there or something, and my dad just had the idea to go. We hadn't been on a vacation. I think my grandmother had just passed away, so it had to be 82, maybe 81 or something.
You know what's funny is that in 1980, I lived in Seattle for like 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because my mom and my sister, they met some people from Seattle on a flight, right? No, actually, that was the second group of friends that I had from Seattle. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. I'd never heard that.
Yeah. So I heard you say something about that, I think on one of your podcasts, and then I wanted to talk about the meters, because you mentioned the meters on Matt's thing.
Yeah.
Huge meters fan. Just want to let you know that.
Oh.
I have to remember to make some announcements about where we're going to be later this year. Don't let me forget.
Yeah. Okay. No, go ahead and plug everything that you need to plug.
Oh, so in July, we are going to be in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. They're inducting my father there.
Right.
I can grab the exact dates, but they're on my phone, and
put them up on the website but I think Matt did talk about it. Is this the thing in Carolina, in North Carolina or something?
Yeah. Louisville.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then also October and December, I'm going to be in Germany and Calgary, respectively. So I'll post those dates as well.
Okay. Yeah. And then I think there are 3 different Andrew Kimuras on Facebook. Which one's the one people should go to?
Sifu Andrew Kimura or Andy.
Okay.
I know there's one guy that's got a picture there with like a white hat on. You can't really see his face, and like he's friends with a bunch of people I know, and they were like, "I sent you a message." I'm like, "I didn't get the wrong Andrew Kimura."
Yeah. All right.
I'm surprised how many there are, really.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm glad we finally got to do this because, you know, on my original notes, you were supposed to be episode number 15, not episode number 58.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Know, so I don't want anybody thinking, yeah, why did Dwight wait so long to get Jeet Kune Do royalty on his show? All right.
Oh, don't call me that. That's all.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure, man. I look forward to doing this another time with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I apologize for the trouble.
No, that's not a one day this show is going to be so well funded and so popular. I'm going to show up at your school to go live with you.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, okay. Well, listen, thanks again, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope we got some good stuff there. So.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. Take care, brother.
Take care. You too. Thank you, sir.
All righty.
Hey, really quick.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Oh my gosh, Segun Taki, how are you?
It's Dwight.
Who is that guy? Dwight?
It's Dwight. Dwight Woods. You want to say hello? He can see you. Say hello.
Yeah, I might as well.
That's
right,
okay.
He's just getting up here late, so
yeah,
put that on. But that was just for you.
I appreciate it. That was very nice of you.
Of course.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks, brother.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was episode number 58 of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with Sifu Andrew Kimura of the Junfan Gung Fu Institute in Seattle. Coming up on Wednesday, probably before or after the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, Wednesday, April 10th, we'll have second episode of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with Sifu Nick Faruqi out of Dallas, Texas now, formerly of Chicago. And then on Friday, we'll be back to the original schedule of Jkd Femme Fatales with Beverly Pratka out of Texas Jeet Kune Do Athletic Association. So a busy week for the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues program this week in April, and I hope to see all you guys then. Take care.